Western Christianity has spent the last 2,000 years telling everyone they're separated from God.
This is Not Church with John and Nat Turney.
Hey, everybody. This is Nat Turney with my brother John. And man, we just want to welcome you back to another awesome episode of This Is Not Church. Today's guest is one of my favorite people on the planet. And I know I feel like a broken record because I've said that about so many people. But I'm so incredibly humbled and honored that the people I've reached out to are the people that I think the most of. And by and large, they have just been so willing to give of their time. It's such a neat thing when people you respect turn out to be the people you think that they are. And that's been the case so far. And this man, David Hayward, is no exception at all. He's known as the Naked Pastor, although sadly, for whatever reason, he's clothed today. I don't understand what's going on here, but I mean, I'm not sure what I was expecting, but you are well dressed and fully clothed. What the hell, man? We'll get into the Naked Pastor part of that in a second. I'm pretty sure I understand what you mean by that, but we'll let you say. But I want to give you a quick rundown of who this man is. After 30 years in the church, David left the ministry to pursue his passion for art. Naked Pastor uses words and images to challenge the status quo, deconstruct dogma, and offer hope for those who struggle and suffer under it. David's no stranger to belief system. He holds a master's in Theological Studies, as well as diplomas in religious studies and ministry and university teaching. His art expresses the stories and struggles of spiritual refugees. And I love that, spiritual refugees, and independent thinkers who question, doubt, or oppose the confines of religion. Each piece encourages difficult conversations and acts as a catalyst for critical thinking. He's an artist and a writer who supports LGBTQ plus people and groups, BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color, right? And women artists, creatives, journalists, and more, and encourages others to do the same. So welcome, David. Welcome to the podcast, man.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me here. I'm glad to be here. And hi, everybody out there.
Awesome. Man, let's just jump into this thing. I think one of the things that I find the most interesting about you, and I don't know that a lot of people are aware, is what an accomplished artist you are. Sometimes we tend to look at people who draw fairly simple cartoons and go, "Oh, cartoonist," which is an art form all its own. I'd never underestimate the difficulty of distilling something down to a single image. But man, you're a talented artist in other mediums as well. Talk about your background in art.
Well, you know what? My background in art is I'm self-taught. So I took art classes and stuff in high school, and I enjoyed it very much. But I watched my dad paint. He was an oil painter, oil on board and things. But he would do the odd watercolor, and I can't remember not drawing ever and painting watercolors. I didn't really enjoy oil paint or acrylic paint that much, but I loved watercolors. So I've been drawing and painting my whole life. And so that's my background, basically. You know, I could have gone into art into college, but I chose, theology and Bible and things like that instead. So yeah, and I've been doing that. You know, I was painting and so on, and sharing that on my blog way back in the early 2000s. And then I was inspired by, I really love a good cartoon, especially like a one-frame cartoon, like, Far Side or The New Yorker or things like that. A good one-frame cartoon. I really love the punch of that. And so one day I just thought, hey, I'm going to try that. I'm an artist. I'm going to try drawing cartoons. I think it was 2006. And I challenged myself to draw a cartoon every day until I ran out of ideas. I thought I'd last a month, if that. And here I am, 15 years later, still drawing cartoons. So that's become my medium of choice for sharing my message.
Wow. So what was your spiritual background like then? You said you went to college for theology and Bible and stuff. Did you go into ministry after that?
Yeah, I was raised in a Christian home, and we went to church of all kinds. I was born baptized Anglican, which is Episcopal down there.
Right.
And I'm in Canada, by the way. And, we just went to the nearest church. We weren't very particular about what denomination or whatever. But when I was in my mid-teens, I got like real born again.
Yeah.
And at a Baptist youth group. And we ended up as a family going to the Baptist church. And then eventually we ended up at the Pentecostal church in town. And I ended up going to Pentecostal Bible College in Springfield, Missouri. And that's where I met my wife, Lisa, who's from Alabama. Met her at Central Bible College. Then from there, when I graduated from there, we went to Gordon Conwell in Boston area. And that's where I got my master's in theology under Dr. Gordon Fee. And then, I was planning on going for my PhD in New Testament. I started it at the University of Toronto, but we got pregnant instead, like halfway through the semester, and realized we just couldn't do this financially. And I ended up kind of by accident going and becoming a student minister in a Presbyterian church. And I eventually got ordained there and eventually served the Presbyterian church for, a long while. And then when I left there, I ended up in the Vineyard Church. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Vineyard. Yeah. So that's where I served the church. It was in the Vineyard in Canada for many years until I left the ministry in 2010.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Man, it sounds like your background's a lot like John's and mine. Just sort of bounced around a little bit. We've got a little smattering of everything. Some pretty traditional, sort of mainline denomination. But we found the Pentecostal movement, in the mid '80s, I think it was probably.
Yeah.
And I found the Pentecostal movement, like the Holy Rollers, down the road after I had moved away. And it was weird because even though I had this thing in my head of sometimes that desire to go back to a more traditional church structure. I never did. I always saw the value of it, but I couldn't quite get myself past the sheer boredom of it all. And so I gravitated towards, laser light shows and rock concerts. I'm like, wow, yeah, I think if Jesus had a church, it'd be like this.
Yeah. Well, that's funny. Like I said, like Lisa and I met in the Pentecostal church.
Yeah.
I was Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada. She was Assemblies of God in the U.S. And the Central Bible College in Springfield, Missouri was Assembly of God. And so, but when I went to seminary, my theology started to change. And I became more interested in theology and especially Reformed theology, biblical studies. I studied Greek, Hebrew, Aramaic, all that stuff. Theological French, theological German, blah, 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 blah. And I just fell in love with Reformed theologians such as Karl Barth and others. And so I served the church in that capacity as a pastor. But I was like you, I missed the passion and the music and the liveliness of the Pentecostal church. Lisa and I both did. So that's why we ended up in the Vineyard. And the Vineyard church we actually ended up in had this really cool mix of good teaching and the passionate kind of worship music. Yeah. And it was always kind of a joke. Would you rather try to light wet wood, or would you rather try to put out a fire?
Wow.
Like that's kind of the choice. Yeah. Was always put before me. In the Presbyterian church, I always felt like I was trying to light wet wood.
Right.
And in a Pentecostal church or in the Vineyard, I always felt like I was trying to put out fire.
Yeah.
So it was that, but I it's more exciting.
Yeah, for sure.
Trying to put out a fire.
Very sure. I agree with that 100%. What do you think, John? What you got, man?
Well, I mean, I just want to jump into some of the stuff on your art because I'm just, first of all, I'm just blown away that you can do this on a daily basis. I admire anybody artistically across the board. I don't care if it's drawing, music, writing, anything that if you can stay focused to put out something every day. I mean, I kind of half jokingly made a comment that I was going to write a poem every day, and that literally lasted a week. And then it's not that I don't want to write. I just, I couldn't come up with something that I felt was worthy of putting out there more than
yeah.
So,
well, I experienced that. I mean, I have thousands of cartoons out there now, right? I mean, if you draw one a day, that's 365 a year. And I've been doing this for 15 years. So do the math. And then on top of that, I've got my images of Christ and my Sophia drawings and other like watercolor paintings and things like that. But, of my cartoons, there might be, like if I was to do a best of book, like some people want me to do like a coffee table book of the best of NakedPastor, I might be lucky to get 200 or something that are really, really, I think are good, and the rest are, okay.
Well, but everything you put out there is thought provoking. And I think that's really, this idea of dissident art, right? Of getting into this, like the undercurrent of the problem, within, be it politics or religion. You kind of went where I was going a little bit, but one of the questions I was asked is just how do you motivate yourself? Because I'm sure there's days, I'm sure Nat is an artist, I'm an artist, musician wise mostly, but there are days where you just flat out don't want to do this. How do you motivate yourself to put a cartoon out every day?
Well, I feel very, very fortunate that I really like your phrase, dissident art. I was trying to open up my iPad to write that down so I wouldn't forget it. I'm very fortunate that I do what I do, and people are buying my books and my courses and my art and things, so that I can sit around on my ass for a couple hours thinking of an idea.
Right. Okay.
Like a lot of people can't do that. They've got a job, they've got kids, they've got, whatever. But Lisa and I are here alone, and our kids are grown up, moved out, and I do this full time. So I can sit around waiting for a good idea to strike me, literally.
Right.
Whereas before for many people the axe is ready to fall at any moment, with their work or family or whatever. But the half of the battle, well, maybe 90% of the battle, is just putting yourself there, like sitting down with your pen or your pencil or whatever you use, your guitar, just like sitting down and just sitting there and wait. And that's what I do. I just sit there and wait until an idea comes. Like it's like a job. I'm passionate about it. I love it. I enjoy what I do. It makes me happy. I have a lot of fun, but I have to, like anybody with any job, I have to put my ass in the chair and wait.
Yeah.
Now I have to actually that's the work.
Yeah.
The rest is, cream. When the idea comes, it just starts flowing, right? So it's the same with my watercolor paintings. I sit down, I don't have really a forethought. And I just I do the things. I get my water ready. I get my brushes ready. I tape down the paper. I choose maybe a palette or whatever. Maybe I'll come up with an idea and then I just go.
Yeah.
And so that's basically, I think Woody Allen said 90% or 99% of life is just showing up. And I think that's the same with our art, our craft.
If you haven't had a chance to see some of David's watercolors, I'm going to point you back to his website as often as I can. It's just nakedpastor.com, right, David?
Yeah. Yep.
Be prepared to be kind of blown away.
Thank you.
If all you've seen is cartoons, you might not understand. And that, again, I don't want to dismiss that because they're dissident. They're very thought provoking. They're all of these things, but man, there's so much cool depth to the watercolor paintings. And I'll tell my quick David Hayward story that I was perusing through your gallery one day, and there was I actually think you might have posted this painting specifically. It's basically a view from the ground looking up through trees.
Right.
And it's just getting dark.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you were inside my head or if you were, whatever, but my wife and I have this memory that we both share of laying out on the trampoline that my kids used to play on in the backyard as night is beginning to fall, and we're looking up through the trees of our backyard.
Yeah.
And it's cool. Like, I bought that for her. I'm like, I need to have that. I have the original at my house.
Awesome.
I had it framed for our anniversary. I'm like, and as soon as she saw it, she said the same thing. She's like, that's like when the kids would go to bed and we'd sneak out into the backyard and we'd look up through the trees. And I don't know. I personally just want to thank you for that because it's such a cool thing. It still hangs in our house and we love it. And
thank you.
But
I appreciate that. I love it when people buy my art.
Yeah, it's great.
But it's I get people sending me mean comments or making mean comments or whatever messages. And, I'll draw a cartoon and I am not trying to achieve any artistic greatness through my cartoons. I'm trying to convey a message, right? So, and I'll have somebody come on and say, you call this art? My 4-year-old could have drawn better than that or something, right? And it's like, well,
maybe.
Great, great, good for him. Keep encouraging him in his art. But I mean, it's I'm just trying to convey a message, and I really do I could go all full on color and shading and all that, but I've found my most punchy cartoons that get to the jugular quicker are just my plain, just black and white line drawings. Yeah. And they just, they're fun to draw. Sometimes they're pretty quick to draw, but, they deliver a punch. That's why I do it. I mean, I used to blog 300, 500, 800, 1,000 words. And, I know people are maybe starting to read and they get bored or disagree and they scroll on. But with one of my cartoons, it's too late. You can't unsee it. In a split second, it's in your head.
It's sabotage. I love it.
Well, I mean, also, speaking from someone who can't draw, I can't draw. So this idea that your art, because it's line drawing or stick figure or whatever you want to call it, is somehow juvenile or less than is absolutely ridiculous, because I cannot, I can't draw what you draw. If I was to draw what you're drawing, it wouldn't come across the way you do it. There's heart behind it. There's thought behind it. There's provoke. You provoke like a reaction, and that wouldn't happen. I mean, there's more to just what you're doing than just putting lines on paper. And so the detractors can, they can pound sand, but
yeah, for sure.
Like I purposefully draw them the way I draw them. Like I could try to draw more realistically, or I spent a long time choosing what my characters would look like, so I ended up with the oval or round head, and that's just the way I do it. And so there's other cartoonists I really like in the New Yorker, or I follow a few cartoonists like on Twitter or on Instagram or so on, and they're accomplished artists. But if you look at their cartoons, they look like they were drawn by a child. Yeah. But they're doing that on purpose, and some of the most powerful cartoons out there are poorly drawn. I mean,
oh, for sure.
You know what I mean? They look poorly drawn, whereas they were intentionally drawn that way. Although one of my favorite cartoonists, he's dead now. It was John Callahan. The guy in the wheelchair who drew with the pen in his mouth. And his cartoons are obviously, they look like they were drawn by a child. Yeah. But he was full on disabled from a car accident, but his cartoons are hilarious. And they just deliver a punch. Yeah. And part of it comes in that package of being, poorly drawn or simply drawn. Let's say that simply drawn. Yeah.
Yeah. And I have found that, my dad is a writer, and my dad excels at short stories.
Oh, cool.
And short stories are tough.
They are tough.
They are hard. I mean, try to get your point across in a story in a few pages and try to make something that packs a punch. Yeah. And not have 200 pages to develop it is an art form all of its own.
It absolutely is.
I liken a lot of what you do to that sort of storytelling. How much information can I pack into one single frame, and then make sure it's got a punch? One of my favorite ones recently that you did is literally just a bar graph. It's not even a bar graph. It's just a graph that goes from left to right? Yeah. And you've done a couple versions of it. I think you can do 100 versions of it, but it started out with What grabbed me was we just had this conversation on a podcast a few weeks ago with a psychology professor, or almost a doctoral graduate of psychology, a friend of ours. And I remember asking her, speaking of deconstruction, speaking of going through some of this process that a lot of us have gone through, does the degree to which we really bought into something, does that translate into how hard it is or how painful it is to deconstruct? And you came out with that cartoon. And I was like, yeah, he gets it. Yeah, that's exactly it. That is an absolute straight line graph. Yeah. The stuff that I had sort of tangentially believed in was no problem to kick away. The stuff that was more firmly ingrained, man, it had to be rooted out sometimes, and it was painful.
Yeah.
But the other one, explain the other one I thought was funnier, was the one about being a dick.
I love that cartoon.
Right, same graph, right?
I love that cartoon. Yeah, so on one side of the axis is how holy you think you are.
Right.
And then the other one is how much of a dick you are. It's like no, it's all how holy you think you are. The more holy you think you are, the more of a dick you are. That's universally true.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I mean, you could do the same thing with like certainty. Like the more certain somebody is about something, I'm like, oh, I'm over you. and it could be anything. You could be certain that the Rolling Stones are the best rock band that ever existed. And I'm done talking to you because it's no fun anymore. So, well, that's another one of my graph cartoons where I have on one axis is uncertainty. Yeah. And on this axis, wisdom. And the arrow goes like that. Oh, see? Look at that. I mean, it does. I love it, man. I do love that your art is instantly recognizable. Yeah. And I wonder if you've noticed that people are trying desperately to copy some of it.
Well, it's better than stealing it and erasing my name from it and posting it
and then changing
as yours.
Yeah.
No, not changing it.
But I've seen some people change some stuff that maybe you draw a cartoon that is pro, or affirming of LGBTQ people, and they've stolen it and then hijacked the message to make it look.
Oh, that's infuriating. And there's nothing I can do about it. I mean, I report it or whatever, and people I get a report back. This doesn't violate our standards. And
it should.
It should.
Yeah.
The most heartbreaking one was of this is an interesting cartoon where Jesus is carrying back a white sheep. The original is him carrying back a white sheep, and the rest of the flock are like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! He wasn't lost. We kicked him out." That was the original cartoon.
Right.
Then somebody said, "Oh, you should draw that with the rainbow colors, the rainbow sheep." So I did that. I drew the sheep, Jesus carrying back, and they're like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! He wasn't lost. We kicked him out." That has some power too. Then somebody said, "Oh, you should do a transgender sheep." So I did the transgender sheep. Whoa, whoa, whoa! He wasn't lost. We kicked him out, and then Jesus says, "I know, but I found her." Oh, so wow. I changed the pronouns, and then there's 4 variations of that, right?
Yeah.
So then, to incorporate all the pronoun possibilities, and then somebody took that cartoon, and there's a new, really gross movement out that started on 4chan of they call themselves super straights.
Wow,
what the hell does that mean?
It just means that they are super straight, and they will only have sex with another super straight person. In other words, they're basically transphobic. So they won't sleep with a transgender male or transgender woman, and so they call themselves super straight, and they're trying to get approved as a sexual orientation and all this kind of, but basically it's just transphobic. So what they did was they took the sheep that Jesus is carrying and applied the super straight colors, which I think are black and brown and white or something. And they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And Jesus is like, I'm bringing them back into the fold. It's like totally twisted.
Wow.
My original, the original meaning of that. And I reported that, and tons of people reported that. It was very disturbing because people knew that's NakedPastor cartoon. I thought he was on our side.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Because they didn't take my name off.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
So, in that case. So, yeah, it was a mess. That was a mess.
Oh, that sucks. I remember being part of a Facebook group several years back, and we loved you. And so we talked about you. And anytime we found somebody had misappropriated one of your cartoons, we'd just go and troll the shit out of them. We'd just go, you know what?
Yeah,
Hey, everyone scream over this. And we'd send 20, 30 people over, just get all like roll up gangster style. And these people like, hey, this is theft. You're stealing. You suck.
Man, I'm deputizing you guys. Awesome.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, anyway, that just drives me nuts, and I know it must break your heart. I know.
Another cartoon, like my cartoon, this just happened today. I'm dealing with it right now. Not right now while I'm talking to you guys, but this morning.
Right.
Where they took one of my cartoons and they took out the English and they put in Spanish, which I'm okay with that.
Sure.
If you want to take my cartoon and literally translate it into your language,
perfect.
You have a green light. Go for it. And I'm really happy about that. But they changed the language, but they took my name out and they put NakedPastor instead of NakedPastor. So I'm wondering if there's a thing about the naked part.
Right.
Maybe they were uncomfortable with that, so they took the NakedPastor out and put NakedPastor. Whatever that means, I don't know.
Well, that's a good segue, though. Let's talk about the NakedPastor thing.
Yeah.
That's the elephant in the room, the naked elephant sitting here.
Naked white elephant at that.
I'm going to guess that, and I'm a Spanish speaker somewhat, and so I wonder if the word desnudo in Spanish carries the same sort of meaning that you mean, I think, when you talk about yourself as the naked pastor. But give us a little thing. I actually started the NakedPastor.com back in 2005 or something. I won the domain name in an auction. Oh, wow.
I think I paid $70 for it or something crazy. And I chose that name because I was actually pastor of a local congregation of a church. And I wanted people to see what the life of a pastor was really like. I was going to tell them about not only my all the souls saved and all the wonderful worship and all this kind of stuff, right? I wanted them to see behind the curtain to get a glimpse at what a life of a pastor was like in dealing with conflict, financial struggles, having a fight with my wife, my kids not being good, well-behaving pastors' kids. I wanted them to see everything. And so that's why I chose the name Naked, meaning unadorned. You're going to see everything. It's going to be raw, real, vulnerable, transparent, honest. And so that's why I chose the name Naked Pastor. Like, remember Naked Chef and Naked Archaeologist and the Naked Truth, all that essentially conveys the same idea of just being real and raw and unadorned. So that's what it means. And I'm a very PG guy. I'm very modest.
Yeah.
And it's harmless.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it is a little provocative, which I think is great, and I think is the point. It begs the question,
Yeah.
And I think so much of what you do as an artist, what I appreciate is I don't feel like you're clobbering people over the head with stuff. I think you're leading and you're guiding them to ask big questions.
Well, I used to, that's another aspect of being naked, vulnerable, is that I never want to come across as somebody who's arrived. So I always want to give people a glimpse into my journey. Right. I'm in progress. I'm in process. I haven't arrived. I'm not perfect. I'm on a journey. And so I want people to, if you go back through my blog, you'll see that I have journeyed to be where I am. So you're always going to get a glimpse of where I'm at. So yeah, sometimes my posts are angry or depressing or retaliatory or, but I want people to see that. Yeah. I did go through an angry phase with the church, and my cartoons, I look back then, I'm like, ooh, that's kind of, that's kind of raw, but that was who I was at that time. And I want people to know when you deconstruct or when you leave the church, this is what it might look like for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. I mean, I had forgotten. I actually have this book.
Oh, cool.
That you didn't send me, but you still signed it, which I thought was great. So I have a signed copy of this book that I won in a drawing online. Isn't that crazy? And I can't remember what Facebook group it was part of, but they're like, hey, send us an entry for this drawing. And I ended up winning 20 books. And one of these was Like, oh, that's so great. But I love the title.
That was a while ago. Okay, I remember that.
2016, right? So,
wow, yeah.
But it says, the title is "Questions Are the Answer."
Yeah,
and it's just so weird because so much of my life in the last probably 5 to 7 years has been not in pursuit of answers, but in pursuit of better questions.
Yeah,
right.
Like we're not even asking the right questions,
right?
And so, for me, so often what happens is the questions are asked, and what rather than certainties and answers, what I get are, okay, that's a good start.
Right.
Now ask this question. That's the better question. Okay. And that leads to a better question. And I'm so enamored right now, and I'm so in love with mystery and uncertainty in the sense that I don't feel the pressure to know stuff.
Right.
And as a pastor, that's a satisfying place to be, because I don't feel the pressure to tell all my people, oh, come to me for the answers. Please, dear God, don't. Like,
yeah.
Let's hash this out together.
But that has really good roots in the Christian tradition, like with the Cloud of Unknowing, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't even know who the author was, but the Cloud of Unknowing is a classic, a Christian classic of that kind of Christian mysticism, right? The via negativa, the way of unknowing. And so it's not like we're ignorant or stupid or we refuse to believe anything. It's actually a way of being spiritual, of embracing mystery and knowing that the word is not the thing, and that the idea is not the thing, that these are just signs, symbols, approximations, attempting to point the finger at what's beyond that. And that's what we're interested in. We're interested in what is beyond the word, what is beyond the idea, what is, or who, that's what we're passionate about and care about. And it's a legitimate Christian tradition as well. Yeah. When you read like Christian mystics such as Meister Eckhart, German mystic, Christian theologian in the 1200s, I think it was, fascinating stuff. And, you have philosophers kind of speaking the same language, like with Hegel and so on. And another modern philosopher living, Slavoj Žižek, who quotes, wrestles with Meister Eckhart all the time. And then you've got your quantum physicists like Carlo Rovelli, his book, 7 Brief Lessons in Physics, for example. They're all kind of talking the same language. Right. And so, yeah, absolutely. Mystery is not a surrender or giving up.
No.
It's an actual way of being.
Yeah, I think it's the more honest approach. Sadly, a lot of the Western evangelical church has decided that mystery only applies to things they don't want to talk about.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's the label they slap on things that when you begin to question stuff like the Trinity, that doesn't make any sense. And they go, it's a mystery.
Yeah.
You go, no, it's actually worth diving into. It is absolutely mysterious. I haven't heard a good explanation yet, but by all means, let's talk about it. You mentioned Karl Barth earlier. I had a question because you also mentioned that you studied biblical German and French, and so here's my burning question about Barth. Okay,
yeah,
because God help me, I've tried, and I love him, but is he easier to read in German? Because the English versions are so hard to get through.
Listen, I didn't. I made it. I made it through one semester, and so and then Lisa, got pregnant and I helped.
Okay. I was just curious.
Involved.
You helped.
But
with the pregnancy or with, never mind. That's a personal question.
But
okay.
I love Barth and
I love Barth too.
I'm part of some Barthian groups on Facebook and things like that. And then like last year, the year before, when his letters came out that were finally released after his death and revealed that he had a full-on love affair with his personal assistant, remember? Basically his wife was fully knowledgeable, and there was this kind of threesome thing going on, and people just gave up on Barth.
A lifetime's worth of work. One of the most important theologians of the 20th century, bar none, and That's too bad. I mean, but I find, like I said, I have to read. I actually bought a book once. It was just called like Karl Barth for Dummies, and that helped a lot. Otherwise, he sends me to my dictionary way more often than I'd like to. I'm like, oh man, what does that word mean?
Well, you know what? More than his, dogmatics, which are, fascinating to read anyway. And he even said, I should have made the footnotes the body and the body the footnotes.
For sure.
But his book on his commentary on Romans changed my life. Changed my life, man. And it was a profound turning point for me when I read that. And I'll be forever grateful for that.
Wow. What was it kind of about that commentary that got you?
Well, he himself said, like, it changed the whole theological world. Yeah. And he said, he compared himself to a boy climbing up the bell tower and tripping and falling and accidentally grabbing the bell rope and ringing the bell that rang throughout the land.
Right.
And that's what he compared it to. He totally tripped on it. But just the sovereignty, the mystery of God.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then our attempts to understand it as individuals and as a community.
Mm-hmm.
He just does it so well in that book. And it's not that big. It's only like this, paperback. And it was just just profound. And the whole idea of grace and compassion and love, nobody says better.
Yeah,
frankly.
No, and as you're sitting there talking about Barth, I'm staring at my copies of Dogmatics. And
you have all the copies?
I do, and they're taunting me from my bookshelf. Like, you're never going to read us.
Yeah, they were originally published with white covers, and he called it the White Elephant because it's so friggin' huge.
It's so huge. It literally takes up a whole shelf of my bookshelf in my study, and I'm like, all right, I feel smart just having them, but I haven't actually accomplished going through them yet.
Yeah,
little bits of the time. I do use them for research. I've written papers and stuff. But hey, before I forget, let's have some questions from our Facebook group. You cool with that, John?
Yeah.
Let me know if I'm hijacking. I feel like sometimes I ramble, and John's like, well, anytime you let me talk, man. I'm like, John is not the engineer. So
is that what?
Are you a pastor, John?
No, I'm a former associate pastor, but I'm no longer associated with the church.
Yeah, see, that's the difference.
I have to talk, and he's willing to sit there and let me. You're not wrong. A couple of weeks ago, I have an assistant pastor, and he's great, and he's one of my first questions. But it was his turn to preach, and I did one little part of the service that morning.
Right.
I'm like, well, I'll do communion, all right. And then I talked for 15 minutes about communion. I'm like, never let the preacher have the microphone. I just can't help it. But so Todd, my friend Todd Mullen, asked this question. He says, and I think this is pretty interesting. But what should evangelism, if that's even a relevant term, what should that look like? And I have a caveat to that question. I want to know if you ever see your cartoons as evangelistic in a sense. But what do you think? Have we lost the plot on what that word even means?
One of my cartoons is one of those bottom ocean fish, with the big teeth, and they've got that light
that thing.
And there's a little orange fish in front, tempted to, in. And I call it evangelism. And this is something more and more people are talking about. I don't know if you know Joe Leumann. She's a woman from her lineage, I think, is from South America tribe, and she talks a lot about racism and deconstruction. And a lot of people follow her as a deconstructionist. But she's profound, very smart, and challenges the church and Christians on, things like racism and stuff. But she also talks a lot about colonization.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And that's where the discussion is when we're talking about evangelism.
Yeah.
Is colonization, where I think I need to somehow persuade you to think the way I do, and if not, you need to be destroyed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, that's the old style Christian evangelism. That's basically what it was. Either you convert to my way of thinking, or you're going to hell.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's colonization. So that's where the real discussion needs to be.
That's a good. I love that.
And if we want to, I'm not really interested in changing people's minds so much because, although I am, where we immediately want to see changes in our behavior, we want to see more equality and justice for everyone, and so on, and that obviously trickles down from ideas. But that's if we can spread justice and compassion and inclusion and affirmation and all that to me is what we should be spreading, rather than just theological ideas about who's in and who's out, and colonizing others to our way of thinking.
Well, I mean, like we've discussed, not discussed before, I no longer label myself as a Christian because I feel like the word has been hijacked.
Yes.
Do you feel like maybe the word evangelism has been hijacked because it means something? It has a very specific meaning, but now it means something like you're saying. Now it means colonization. Now it means, and is it even? Can we even get it back? I mean, is it lost?
Well, I'm with you there, because there's a lot of words I don't use. Like when people say, "Do you believe in God?" Man, that comes with a lot of baggage when you ask me that.
Right.
Or like I have a lot of cartoons about that. I have a lot of cartoons about labels. The labels are on the outside pointing out.
Right.
It's for other people to,
Right.
I don't need a label for myself because I know what's on the inside. I don't need the label. The label is for other people, but I don't worry about that. That's their problem. I let other people worry about where to peg me or where to put me.
Right.
I can't even say the word peg anymore because that's just not a good word to use anymore. But people are going to try to understand who I am by different kinds of labels. And I don't worry about that. That's their problem. But yeah, evangelism, we all know originally means the good news. But it's not good news anymore. It's a good plan.
Yeah.
It's like, here's the steps you need to follow in order to enjoy the good news, instead of just the good news, which was originally God loves everybody.
Yeah. Go figure.
Everybody's in now.
Yeah.
Everybody's God's children. That was originally the good news. It was a news report.
That's exactly right. That's N.T. Wright says it like this. He's, and I'll paraphrase him, but N.T. Wright essentially says the good news is the announcement that the kingdom of God has come, that something has happened, the result of which everything is different. Right. Perfect.
Well, we've turned it into a good offer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, because we had a good conversation. I had a good conversation once with Brad Jersak talking about that verse in the Bible that says that grace has come, has been basically, there's a verse that says it's been offered. And he's like, actually, that's not in the original text. It just says grace has come. The saving grace has come. And we've inserted this like has come, and we've sort of couched it in offer terms. Yeah. And we've made it look like a really good, hey, you don't want to miss this. It's going to be good. 90% off salvation, but you still got to put your 10% in, man. Now with 18% more grace, or it's. But the other part of that coin, though, too, is that the term evangelical now is so associated with not any sort of religious movement, but now it's a voting block. Now it's a political movement, right?
Right. It's ruined.
It's ruined. I don't know that it's recoverable. I don't think it's redeemable. I won't use it anymore. I'm a little more dogmatic and steadfast about the term Christian because I just feel like I'm drawing a line in the sand and I'm going to take it back. But there might come a time when it's irredeemable as well. Although, go back to the original church and they never used that term for themselves anyway. So
no, it was a label applied to them as followers of Jesus or Christ, right? So, I say my home's in Christianity, but I got cottages everywhere.
Yeah, I like that.
It's in my DNA. I'm not going to try and, comb it out. Yeah. It's part of who I am. And I'm not embarrassed by it or ashamed of it. It's part of my story. But it's for me, the Christianity where it started as a very small kind of a thing now is it's helped me to be embracing of all things. So that's why, I respect my roots, and I don't wish to sever myself from them. I think that would be unhealthy and not wise. And this is a part of our growth.
Right.
So,
I don't remember who said it, but someone now, when someone asks if they're a Christian, they ask, "Well, what do you think Christian? What does Christianity mean to you?" And then from their definition, then you can either say, "Yeah, I'm one of them," or "Absolutely not, I'm not." I think it's better to get an idea of what they think that word means before you just say, blanketed, I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
Right.
And I feel that's a better conversation than just saying yes to the word.
Right.
Well, and then when you said, you're not interested necessarily in persuading people, although you are, but that's not maybe that's not the upfront goal. But do you find it's as important to provide a voice then for people who often don't have one, to let them know, hey, there's people on your side here. Like what do you think about providing some sort of allyship, for lack of a better word,
Yeah, I mean, those are the posts that get the most vehement reaction, as well as the most positive reactions from people. And there are always posts about women, BIPOC, people of color, etc., and LGBTQ plus. Those are the three hottest topics.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm a feminist, and I am a friend to LGBTQ people, and some call me an ally, although I don't call myself that. Hopefully,
that needs to come.
They will call. Yeah, it needs to come from them. And then I talk a lot about racism and so on. So I'm aware that I'm white and that I'm male and live in the Western world and straight, et cetera, et cetera. But these are the hills the church is willing to die on.
Yeah. Why?
It baffles me. But this is where they're willing to die. Like the Vineyard Church in Canada, for example, last year voted to not be affirming. And I can't believe it. But that's the hill they're willing to die on. And just yesterday, I saw more people leaving the Canadian Vineyard, leaders, because of that they're unwilling to be affirming of queer people. So, yeah.
Well, it's a hill that many of us are willing to die on, I think, with them. Not
that's
Vineyard,
where the battle is.
But on the other side, where we say, all right, well, we tried the tolerance thing. But at the end of the day, who the hell wants to be tolerated?
Right.
Right.
That's just honestly, some of it's just chicken shit.
Yeah.
I'll try to couch this in nice terms and not offend anybody. Well, I'm done. I'm way less afraid of offending religious people than I am about hurting people that I love, who would be hurt by my silence.
Yeah.
And so it's time to, fish or cut bait, however you want to put that. And to, like you said, to prioritize human beings over whatever even this is, dogma, doctrine, our limited perceptions of what God likes or doesn't like. But when people are dying, literally causing themselves harm, living lives that are, full of pain and turmoil and why? Well, all because we've told them that God hates them, and we got to stop.
Well, well, first of all, it goes to apparently what's become one of our catchphrases. This is just bullshit, right?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, they don't even take the time, and I can say they, and that all of us can say they, because we were part of that evangelical movement, right? We were in it, and so I feel like I can critique it. Nat can critique it even better than I can because he was in it longer than I was. But they don't even take the time to get to know these people.
Right.
They don't even take the time to realize that these people are human beings that deserve love, that deserve acceptance, that deserve everything that we have as middle-aged, white, straight men. And to not understand our privilege and not understand where we come from is just, it's just asinine. I mean, I'm getting angry just talking about it, but, and there's some of us now, you being one. I mean, I'll repost everything you have that's on LGBTQ or the women's movement or the BIPOC, because I mean, it's so spot on every single time. And we as middle-aged, white, straight men, the best we can do is just speak up and say enough is enough.
Yes.
And it's time for us to give them the space to speak.
Right.
Give them the space to explain to us their hurt and their pain, and to believe them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
And to not belittle what they're saying, and to say, well, yeah, but I don't see it. And in my circle, I don't see it. Well, that's because your circle is a bunch of white dudes. Of course, you don't see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, so end of my soapbox moment.
Yeah. All right. Soapbox is. Have we removed John's soapbox? All right. I got a question for you from one of our other friends, Jonathan Wilson. I told these guys I'd give him a shout out. Woo, Jonathan Wilson in our Facebook group, who asked to know, what do you do when you get when your cartoons get a negative response from people who are close to you, or do you get negative responses from people who are close? I mean, haters gonna hate, whatever.
Right.
But is it especially difficult when maybe it's someone in your family?
Yeah, I've gotten that.
Yeah,
and it hurts. But my family's more conservative than I am. And, I've gotten anger or dismay, from my family. And I just go back to work.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to write a post about how to deal with family when you're deconstructing, because that's a lot of people's struggle. And one of the things that I am trying to convey is I don't have to let them control me anymore. Like when I grew up, I was the firstborn of 5 kids and very strong father. He was a cop and disciplined and authoritarian and everything. And I grew up expected to believe a certain way and behave a certain way. And I was pretty compliant on the outside, but inside I was an independent thinker and very curious, etc. So eventually I got to the place where I could come out theologically and be who I am now in front of my family. And, not just my birth family, but my, aunts and uncles and everybody. And you know what? They just have to deal with me. That's not my, it's not my problem. I know it's hard to say that and to live that, but I am me. This is who I am. It's your problem.
Right.
If you don't know how to handle me. So, but I'll do my best to make it as easy as possible for you, but I'm not going to change shapes just for you.
No.
So, but that, it took me a while. I mean, I'm not young. It took me a while to get to that place of being out in the open with the way I think. So then when I hear from, a family member who are shocked or dismayed or angry, it's like, yeah, well, this is the hand you were dealt when you got me as a son or a brother,
It's like, I know we can either deal with this or not, right?
Yeah.
I mean, John and I both have pretty conservative family members as well, and I don't get as much pushback because I'm 2,000 miles away, so I can do and say what I want.
Yeah, I'm far away too.
And John gets the full ration of crap sometimes that comes along with being a heretic and a blasphemer or whatever he is. John, you're on grease skids to hell, buddy.
John, are you close to your family? Is that what that means? Like geographically?
I live. I live up in the mountains east of the West Coast. I'm on the West Coast in California.
Cool.
True Northern California. So I'm up in outside of a town called Eureka.
Yeah,
about 35 minutes east, up in the hills. But yeah, I'm within driving distance of just a few minutes of my parents, my sister, aunts and uncles who are close. So yeah, quite a big, quite a large group of my family lives in this area. And Nat, I mean, up until he wisely left, was close too.
Yeah.
But I was just going to say, I'm absolutely loving some of the Instagram posts you put on with just the comment that you have, like some of the detractors, and you just leave it there. And it's just like the hate that they drop is enough. You don't need to respond to it. You don't need to comment on it. I mean, it's just, you kind of remind me of Matthew DiStefano in his way of just kind of like owning some of this, like just pure, unadulterated malice. Hate for what you do.
Yeah, the malice. That's a good word. Yeah, no, it's, I had to figure out a way to alchemize that into something good. So now I make these graphics with a negative comment, like, this, one of them was like, I forget some of them, but one was like, this is some hot garbage or something. It's a hot garbage right here. Yeah. And hot trash or what, I can't remember, but so I make a post out of it and I put their name too, because they're posting it publicly on my, it's not secret. They didn't send it to me privately. They posted it publicly on my post. Yeah. And that's their comment. So, I make a little pretty graphic out of it and people get a kick out of it. It's fun. I've got another one to put up later tonight. So,
oh, great. I'm looking forward to that.
They're funny. The things people come up with. It
reminds me of judo. It's like spiritual judo. All right, go ahead. Bring your worst, and I will just turn your crap against you and knock you on the ground with it. So, and like John said, it doesn't require any further comment than the self-condemnation that is this ugly vitriol that why? Like, in the name of Christ, why would you do that?
Yeah. Some of them are like, I can't wait for God to burn your ass,
Oh, like, man. Hashtag stuff Jesus would say.
What? I never heard that line in Evangelism 101.
I don't either. Was it one of the Beatitudes? Blessed are those who are heretics, so they shall have their ashes burned. I mean, something like that. That just got to be. Oh, man.
Yeah.
If I don't ask Kelly's question, she's going to get on to me. So Kelly Holland, one of my dear friends, asked if a lot of your cartoons maybe are inspired by what does she say, by your own experience or things that are happening or that you see in your world. But she also asked the second part, which I thought was cool, which is, was there a subject matter you wouldn't illustrate? Is there something that's like taboo, off topic, or?
I have a disclaimer. I have a disclaimer on my site that any of the cartoons I've drawn are never, ever of somebody's personal story that they've told me or whatever.
Gotcha.
Never,
okay.
ever,
I
ever.
like that.
It's always from my own personal story, or it's universally true. Everybody knows this has happened to so many people.
Right. Oh, gotcha.
I never, if somebody confides in me, I am a locked vault when it comes to people sharing their stories with me.
Good. I love that.
And I never, ever cartoon about that or talk about that unless they give me permission. So no, nobody has to worry about that. If you share your story with me, I'm not going to make it, you're not going to see it in a cartoon the next day. I promise you. Yeah. I just don't do that. But so a lot of them are from my own journey. I've been in the church. I had been in the church for decades. I've seen abuse. I've participated in it. I've been abused. I believe stupid things. I've seen stupid things. I've got it's like the Matrix, that arsenal of weapons, of things I've seen to cartoon about. It's never ending. Yeah. And so, that's where all that comes from. And almost everybody who sees the cartoon, once in a while, somebody will say, not all churches, or, I've never seen a church like that. And I'm like, holy smokes, do you get out much?
Yeah, really.
Because seriously, this is kind of rampant. Yeah. This is epidemic. Some things are taboo for me now, mostly. I might break this once in a while. I used to go after celebrity pastors or so on that were doing or saying stupid things or abusive things or whatever. I would actually cartoon about different so-called Christian leaders or whatever. I don't do that so much anymore. Even I cartooned a little bit about Trump now and then when I was angry enough or whatever. But I try not to do that as much anymore because I try to be more general in my cartoons so that it's universally applicable, so that somebody can't say, oh yeah, well that's so-and-so, that's not anybody else or me, that's just that one thing. Right. So I try to avoid that because, boy, the pain that I've gone through and other people have gone through who have been retaliated against by so-called leaders and so on. It's ugly. Yeah. It's really, really ugly. Yeah. So I feel I've got enough to do without doing that.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, essentially, the second you put a name to something, like you said, you've kind of narrowed it down to a very particular audience, and you've invited some silliness that you probably don't need.
Yeah, there was a period of time when I was kind of like a political cartoonist, where they would satirize a certain politician or whatever.
Yeah.
I would do that with certain leaders I felt were being really harmful or idiotic or whatever. And, they were entertaining, and they were kind of like that political cartoon, but religious cartoon, that same kind of application. But the pain wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
Because it's nasty out there.
It really
is nasty out there.
I mean, it's funny because I run across people like you who are just genuinely, seemingly so kind, and there's other people like Brad Jersak, who Paul Young, and others that we've talked to who are genuinely nice people, and to find out that they have detractors and haters is always just shocking to me.
And we're all Canadian.
Yeah, and you are all. Wait a minute, that's it. We're just jealous.
I think so.
I think we're just jealous. I know I'm jealous. I've had the pleasure of visiting Canada once, and I desperately want to go back. I have friends there I need to go see when all this COVID crap is over. We're going back. I've got friends in Hamilton and up near Toronto, and I really want to get back.
That's my hometown, Toronto.
So yeah, yeah, I think you're right. I think we're jealous of the Canadians. That general sense of just niceness, we don't trust because we're Americans, and darn it, we work differently. But when you mention that some people say that they sort of come back with this, when you make a sort of general statement about the church and they go, well, that's not been my experience, I've never seen that. Right. That bugs me so much these days, because we'll make statements like that too. And I have people who are like, I've been in my church my whole life, I've never once heard that. And I'm like, where have you been? Like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So it's time for the church to own their stuff.
Yeah.
Or get out of the way, honestly. I mean, and I'm of two minds on the whole thing. I think the church is salvageable in some form. I just don't think it's salvageable in its current form. I think we absolutely need to rethink, reimagine what it is we are here for, or get the hell out of the way and let somebody else do this.
Well, I think I'm kind of there too. What I think, this is my view, is that when you talk about the big categories like religion or church or Christianity, we can't put our money on those horses anymore. But there are churches out there striving to be healthy.
Yeah, for
sure.
There
are good pastors out there striving to be good pastors.
Yeah,
and good teachers, and affirming churches and so on. So it's almost like we invest in and we look for those places where people are working hard to be good.
Yeah,
that's what I conclude now. Like, I give up on religion and give up on the church and give up on Christianity as movements and as institutions and so on. They just are what they are. They're a part of creation. They're creatures. Principalities and the powers have a lot of influence in those realms. But I'm interested in that pastor or that church or this book or whatever. I think that's where we need to be focused on.
I agree. And you're right. There are people out there who are trying to do that, and they deserve all the support they can get. So when John and I critique or talk about the church, I like I said, I'm still in it. They'll drag me kicking and screaming from the little tiny church that I have the pleasure to lead and try and, do things differently. But that's where we are, man. At the end of the day, if it's not about human beings, if it's not about human connection, if it's not about letting people find their place in the world, where they feel validated and valued, then I don't know. Otherwise, the church has ceased to have any meaning. But when John and I critique the church, that's what we mean. We look at the institution and the structure of it, and the ways in which those sort of nameless, faceless things they do harm unchecked. And they've got to be kept checked. Like Walter Wink's The Principalities and the Powers. Like that whole take of we've got to be on guard against these things, or they will run amok.
Totally.
And guys like you, dude, are doing it. I think it's a good place to try and wrap this up, John, because guys like David, guys like the Naked Pastor here, the fully clothed Naked Pastor. Very PG. But that's what dissidence is. That's what being a fly in the ointment is. That's what someone who's willing to sort of Don Quixote out there and tilt windmills and say, I will throw myself body and soul into this thing. For whatever change I can make come about. And so that's why I appreciate guys like you who are, putting it on the line and doing it so well, man, doing it so well. We appreciate you. People need to definitely connect with you on your website. They need to buy your art, buy his art. Support a struggling artist in Canada. Come on, man. Maple syrup's expensive. The guy needs your help. Molson ain't cheap. What else y'all got up there? Poutine. That's some good stuff. But NakedPastor.com. I highly recommend prints of whatever you like. I've got them hanging in my church. I love them. Originals. If you want one, I'm actually about to commission a piece from you. I think I need to commission something for our church that would represent who we are as the open table. So cool. But anyway, so I want to collaborate with you on. So I think it'd be a lot of fun. But man, just unbelievably great conversation. Unbelievably great stuff that you're doing. And I'm running out of adjectives to describe you adequately. So I just leave it at awesome.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
And say hi to your, say goodbye to all your listeners out there, but also say hi to your Facebook group for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, we will. Man, they will appreciate you. And I know we've posted your stuff in there before, and everyone loves it. It's just, like I said, it's always good to just spark a conversation and see, like, what do you think about that? You know what I mean?
Right.
So
cool.
Anyway, we appreciate you, man. We're going to go ahead and sign off. This is John and Nat Turney. This has been This Is Not Church. That's tough to say, John. This has been, this is not, this will be. No, this has been, This Is Not Church with our good friend, the Naked Pastor, David Hayward. We will see you guys next time. Hey, I have to do this for Jonathan Wilson too, because he's the first one who said he thinks I sound like Matthew McConaughey. So, all right. That's for you, Jonathan. All right, peace out.
Thank you for listening to This Is Not Church. Be sure to rate and review the podcast on your platform of choice. If you would like to partner with us, visit patreon.com/thisisnotchurch, where you will receive exclusive content such as early access to episodes, videos of upcoming episodes, and live Q&A sessions. Be sure to check out our Facebook group or follow us on Twitter and Instagram. All the links are in the show notes. We'll be back soon with another episode.